Hello class, this is Megan Jones, your instructor for the course. I'd like to walk through you with tutorial 1, your assignment, and all we're going to do is make a block style business letter. The lesson begins on word 4 and 5. And on page 5 you'll see a short little example on figure 1-1 of what we're going to do today. So let's go ahead and get started. So on page 6 we start with typing the word February, but we don't quite finish it all the way, so Feb-R. Now once you type Feb and then R, you'll see February pop up. Now this is a feature in Windows we call autocomplete, okay? So if we hit enter, it should automatically put in February for us, so that's a good thing. It makes typing faster and whatnot. So let's go ahead and continue on page 7, and we'll go ahead and type the rest of that date out, so 8/2013. And real quick here, I'm going to enable my paragraph marker, that way I'll know where the paragraphs are. The book really likes to refer to paragraphs as individual lines, so you definitely want to make sure that you can see where the paragraphs are. Okay, so after typing the date, we'll hit enter twice, 1, 2, and then start typing that inside address on page 7. So, Jean Driscoll, enter, 2257 Chamberlain Drive, enter, North Liberty, and that's in Iowa. I think that's what that is. 52317. There we go. So let's go ahead and flip the page over to 8 and 9. And right below that address, we're going to hit enter and start typing our greeting. So, Dear Jean or Jean, I'm not sure what that is. And hit enter. And then we'll start typing again. Enclosed, you will find the author's guide we discussed at the meeting. Space. I think, if I can type, it will answer all your concerns. And we'll hit enter. Now in word 9, it starts talking about how it's always a good practice to start saving your documents about, as soon as you start typing. That way you're not losing anything. So let's go ahead and go to File, and then to Save As. Now in this first one, it wants us to save it as Driscoll letter. So let's go ahead and type. A good practice when you're doing these tutorials in your book is to go ahead and save them in your data files where it says tutorials. So I'm going to navigate there now. So we're going to go to data files for text, and then head on over to word 1. We're in tutorial 1, and we're going to go to tutorial. Okay, so let's go ahead and save it there. Alright, so now that we have that finished, let's go ahead and flip on over to 10 and 11. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about the undo and redo buttons. Up at the top, beside of your diskette symbol here, at the upper left-hand corner of your screen, you'll see an arrow. And if you hover over, it'll say Undo Property Update. Now that's just undoing the last step, okay, what you did. If you drop down the arrow, the arrows always mean more options, so you want to drop that down. Now you can see all the steps we took so far in our document, and it's listing 7 actions so far. So if we undo all of those actions, something bad will happen, right? Everything will disappear. But not to fear, we always have our redo button here. So we can just keep clicking on it until we get back to where we are. So that's a little bit about how undo and redo works. Okay. Another thing about navigating Word is that, like right now, if you see on your screen, I'm clicking around. You can also use your arrow keys on your keyboard to move around that insertion point. And the insertion point is that vertical blinking line that marks where, if you're going to start typing, that's where it's going to begin. Okay. Alright, so on page 11, let's start talking about correcting errors as you type. And Windows also features, in addition to an autocomplete, like we did earlier with February, it also includes an autocorrect, okay? So Word has its own dictionary that it uses to, match what you're typing and see if you're spelling stuff right. So, let's go ahead and type in an incorrect sentence at the bottom of page 11. Now, you'll begin with a lowercase I. Now, if you look at that I and you press spacebar, you'll see that it automatically capitalizes, which in standard English is, every sentence needs to begin with a capitalization. So Word knows that, we know that, and hopefully anyone that knows English knows that. So Word knew that, and that's awesome. So let's continue typing. We'll call in a few days to us te. Alright, when we're typing the, now we switched them backwards obviously. If we hit space right after that, Word should automatically switch the words back around because it's like, hey, this person mixed up, the E and the H in the, let's help them out and make it the. And then finally, schedule. Okay, so let's continue on to page 12 and start typing again. So, I are looking forward to, that's with 2 O's, having lunch with you next week. Fantastic. Alright, so let's take a look at what Word did here real quick. As you can see, there are a few little details that are underlined. You have the red underlines, you have green underlines, and you have blue underlines. Word is reading these all as errors. Typically, spelling errors and such are underlined with red. Green is more grammar-wise, and blue is, the word's spelled correctly, but it's not quite used in the way it's supposed to be used. So let's go ahead and make those corrections. If you right-click with your mouse on the underlined words, Word will usually suggest steps to take to fix it, obviously, which is very helpful. So, a few, obviously we both know that, we typed the word twice and we only need few once. So Word's suggesting that we delete this repeated word, which is definitely what we want to do. So let's go ahead and click on that. Alright, so the next word would be discuss, and we always want to do discuss, which is what we meant. If we click on R, right click, it's suggesting I am, which is definitely what we want. Finally, let's right click on to, and it'll suggest to, which is the right to. So that's a little bit about spelling and grammar check. So let's go ahead and keep on typing. So we'll hit enter, and on page 14 this continues. So we want to type the closing, so sincerely yours, and include the comma, and we're going to hit the enter key 3 times, so 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to type in Andrew Ciordia, enter, and then managing editor, and then we'll hit enter twice, type enclosure, and then one more enter, AES, and there we go. So there are a few other little errors here. One of them happens to be Ciordia, and the other one is the initials used to kind of tell who typed this letter in the first place, which is practice with secretaries and stuff. Alright, so we know that, we spelled the last name right because it's the last name. You can try writing your own name and see if it gets underlined. If I type my own name here, just for example, my name's not going to get underlined, because it's quite a common name. But this one's not so common. So if you know it's spelled correctly, you can add it to your dictionary by right-clicking on the word and going to Add to Dictionary. Now once you add to dictionary, if you try typing that again, for instance, this is just an example, it won't underline anymore. So that's a good thing. It's added to our dictionary, we're ready to go. Okay, good deal. And this is just, a signature, like, again, those acronyms for that person's name, so we can just ignore. And ignore. So again, thought it was a misspelling, then it underlined it green and thought it was a grammatical error. So let's keep on going. And head over to 16 and 17 in your book. So at this point, it wants us to edit this paragraph and line spacing in a document. Now if you highlight the inside address up here, so you're highlighting these 3 paragraph lines, okay? Now the book will refer to each line as a paragraph because it's marked with a paragraph symbol. Typically, I think of a paragraph in regular English as multiple lines, but in this book it refers to paragraphs wherever the paragraph mark is. So in this case there are 3 paragraphs, so keep that in mind with this particular book. Alright, so we want to change the line spacing and the paragraph spacing. Those are 2 different things. So if you've ever done an English paper before and they want it double spaced, you know where to go. So this button here is your line and spacing button, and let's go to single spaced. As you can see, there's still some spacing left there, so that's a problem. Let's go ahead and remove that space after paragraph, and now you see that the paragraph's gone. Okay, let's go ahead and flip on over to 18 and 19, and it wants us to actually do that to the closing signature as well. So it wants us to do that to Andrews and his title. So we'll go back up here to line and paragraph spacing. We'll click on it, make sure it's single spaced, and then we're going to remove that space after paragraph. By default, Word likes to put in that space after paragraph. That's just the way it is. So that's line and paragraph spacing, and let's take a look at margins really quick. So if we go to page layout, this is where you'll find your margins and orientation buttons. If you click on margins, it'll give a bunch of different little measurements here. So right now we're at normal, 1 all round, and that looks good to me. If you want to change the margins, it's just simple. You go to margins, custom margins, and then at the top, according to pages 20 and 21 in your book, it wants us to give a 2.5 at the main top of the document. This is just to provide some spacing typically for a letter. That way we don't have to hit enter and try to measure it. So if we hit OK, we'll see that spacing at the top has come down. And if you check with margins, you'll see that you have your last custom setting there. Okay? Which is pretty spiffy. Alright, finally, preview and printing a document on 22 and 23 in your book. If we go to File, and then to print, you'll see that there's a short print preview of your document, what it would look like if you were to print it. If you want to print this, I don't obviously require it because it's internet class, but you can drop down that box, select your printer, the number of copies, and print. So that is tutorial 1.1, creating a letter, and shortly I'll be posting tutorial 1.2 about doing your flyer. So I will talk more about that then. Thanks a bunch.